7 touches against Crystal Palace on Saturday. Romelu Lukaku has 5 goals in his 17 Premier League matches so far this season. Trevor, a lot has been made of these 7 touches. I've seen comps of the seven touches going around on social media. I've heard a lot of criticism either way for him as well. You heard the reaction to some of the pundits here on talkSPORT. Where do you think the responsibility lies with this?
I think it's mainly lies with Romelu, but also I think the support that he can get from Chelsea, sports psychologists, training, the fundamentals. You have to do all that yourself, and you have to seek that. I don't think it's forced upon players to take this help. But we've all been there. I think sometimes when pundits have been out the game for 5-10 years, they forget how difficult this sport is. You know, I'm out there daily training with young players and coaching young players, and it's a simple game, but there's so many things that you need to remember. So maybe a few reminders from the coaches, but certainly Romelu needs to take responsibility. He needs to get in the gym, he needs to do extra training, and he needs to get himself up and running. But also on the pitch, you know, if he's making movements, if I'm on a pitch and I make a few movements as a centre forward and I'm running behind, then I come short, and then I'm running behind and come short, and the lads are not giving it to me, I'm getting into my teammates. I'm saying, give me that, demand it. Because at the moment, he's not getting the ball. Now, whether that's for him not showing for the ball or not making movements for the ball or his teammates turning him down, I'm not really sure which. But he needs to own this, and he needs to take responsibility, and he needs help. And, you know, I think one of the biggest things, or one of the biggest assets you can have as a coach when you're looking from the outside at his performance and analysing it afterwards, it's reminders, it's helping the player. And I'm sure that all them things are going on, and he will turn this around because he's a class act and he is a class player. But he's having a dreadful time, and out of them 7 touches, one was the kickoff. So you know, he's literally not involved in the game.
I think one was kickoff, Trevor's one. I think maybe a couple of them were also when he was offside, when Ziyech goals was chalked off. But I'm with you. I think he's got to do, obviously, himself personally, he's got to do a little bit more, but he does need to have a conversation with his teammates about his service, and even the manager. Have a conversation with the manager in private, because as I've said, Romelu Lukaku's biggest attributes are his pace and his power, getting in behind. You get crosses in the box, good in the air, can win his header. Look at some of the goals he scored this season, even in the Club World Cup. One of the goals he scored over there was a header. Cross came in, really good header. So I think he's not getting the service. They're not playing to his strengths, and I think that's something you've got to address, because there's no point in spending all that money investing in all that player. And even before that, you can even go Timo Werner, because they invested in him as well. They don't play to his strengths, playing him behind. If that's not how they want to play, then why sign these type of striker?
Yeah.
Well, this is what I've struggled to get my head around with this, is why spend all that much money on him to bring him in the first place, and then for the first few games it looked great, and then all of a sudden something switches. And I understand that's why he was frustrated going out and doing the public interview and stuff like that. But Trevor, was it not the right signing in the first place?
Well, I think when you look at a full Chelsea squad, I think the assets they had during the season, with Reece James on the right, getting crosses in, getting to the byline, giving them that extra width on the right-hand side. Ben Chilwell wasn't involved at the start, but he became involved. I think you're playing with second fiddle wing-backs or full-backs, and I've watched a few of Chelsea's games. I think they're too narrow. They're too easy to predict. And if you've got a player like Lukaku, you need the opposition to be quite high so you can make the movements in behind. But the biggest asset he's got is getting in the box and getting crosses in, and it doesn't happen a lot with Chelsea. They've not really got that width.
What do you think, Darren?
I agree. I think the fullbacks are huge, but also as well, I know they don't necessarily play like that. But when you look at someone's, you have conversations in the dressing room, you work on the training pitch, and you say to yourself, I'm sure in training these guys work on their attributes to kind of get the best out of Romelu Lukaku, and one of them is to just bend it in behind. It's so effective. I mean, you look at some of I think of probably the best in the Premier League right now who plays that similar way, and that's Jamie Vardy. Sometimes the midfield players of Leicester don't even have to look. They just know that he's always going to be doing that. They just spin it in behind and Vardy's off. I think they could do the same with Romelu Lukaku. He's quick, he's powerful. It doesn't have to be a 30-yard fantastic pass. At times, when you're under pressure, you just hook it in behind, and he brings you up. He brings you further, and that will allow then that the other opposition will then drop further and further deep, because I think, well, we don't want to keep running back towards our own goal, and that will free up the space in front to go to feet and stuff. But at the minute, they're not even giving him that option of stretching the pitch, so he's just becoming irrelevant at the minute.
He's not the first number 9 to struggle at Chelsea.
Oh my God, they've had a long list.
Well documented. Why, Trevor, is that? Why do you think they have a problem with that position with so many players?
Well, I mean, you look at the standards that Drogba set. It's massive boots to fill, and not many have been able to get anywhere near that. But I agree with what Benty said, to be honest, because I was at the Liverpool game, and early on in the season, one of the first games of the season, and you could see Romelu Lukaku's movement was superb. You know, he was coming short, sucking the centre half in, and then spinning into one of the channels where the space was, because Liverpool play with a high line, especially the fullbacks, and the players didn't see it. And I thought, you know what? When that clicks, teams are in trouble, especially if they play high fullbacks. Why has it not clicked yet? Now, I don't know whether Bent will agree, but as a centre forward, sometimes you need conversations in the changing room before you go out.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm going to be coming in when you've got that little bit of ease on the ball. When you've got a bit of time, I'm going to be coming in. As soon as you put your head down to play the ball, I'm spinning. The defender's right up my backside. I'm going to spin in behind, and I just want you to spin the ball in there. Make sure the keeper can't get involved. So put it into the little bit in the wide areas, just over the fullbacks, and then I'll do the rest. I don't understand why if these conversations are going on, why the fullbacks or whatever player it is in that defensive mode or the defensive midfield, why they're not playing that ball. Because they're his strengths. We've seen him playing for Belgium. We've seen him playing last season for Inter. He gets into them positions. You can't even see the ball as a defender. He's so huge and strong. And actually, for the size of him, he's mobile as well. He's rapid. So they're not playing to his strengths, and I think Chelsea have got to take responsibility as that as a team and as the coaching staff. I've got to try and bring that into their game a little bit more.
Do you think he'll stay, Trevor? Would you like to see him stay at Chelsea?
Well, I would, because he's not proved himself. You just mentioned the stats there: 5 goals in 17 games. After what he achieved over in Italy, and what he has achieved in his career, you know, the goals that he scored for Belgium, the career that he's had, and he's still relatively young. He's still got a lot to give. So I would like him to stay and really prove himself in the Premier League, because at a top club, because he didn't really do that at Manchester United. He was superb at Everton and a couple of other clubs prior to that on loan and bits and bobs, but he's never really proved himself at a top club in this country yet.
I agree. I'd like to see him stay and just fight. I think don't come into the season, if it hasn't worked out, don't just kind of look for the easy option, which would be to move, because someone would obviously buy him. I want to see him continue, stay, fight, and show everyone that he's a good player, because as Trev said there, question marks over the Manchester United. Although he did really well first season, second season went a bit pear-shaped. Stay at Chelsea, fight. I mean, show everyone that you are top goal scorer.
But if he feels that he's doing everything in his power and he's doing everything right, and it's the system around him, is he going to want to stay if the system's not going to change, Trev?
Well, I think you've got to exhaust all the other options first. I mean, literally get your teammates by the scruff of the neck and say, listen, I'm not asking now. I'm telling you.
100%, Trev.
Listen,
100%.
I've had massive rows with players. You know, fullback gets the ball, I'm out wide, and he looks at me, and then he decides to go inside and play a more difficult ball. If he does that 2 or 3 times in the game, I'm having real words with him. No joking words. At half-time or during the game, I'm pulling him and saying, listen, play me that ball. And there'll be a few expletives in there. Give me the ball, because at the moment, I'm like null and void. I'm not involved in the game. And you're making me look bad. And by not playing the easy ball, the simple ball, which is usually the right one, you're actually making yourself look a bit of a mug as well. So start playing properly.
It can happen though, can't it, Darren? Like, it can happen where players get involved in games and they don't touch the ball as much as they perhaps want to. There was an article from 2011. Bent touches the ball less than any other Premier League player. So Opta stats show that Darren Bent averages just 24.6 touches per Villa game this season, a stat bound to concern Three Lions boss Fabio Capello, who has vowed to only take informed players to Poland and Ukraine next summer.
That's a like. I scored 25 and still didn't go.
Wow.
Well, this is it. When you compare,
so in there. Yeah, do you know what I mean?
there's a comparison here. Ben compared to Joe Hart touched the ball over 500 times in a game this season.
500 times in a game.
500 times in games this season.
Yeah.
But how many? So tell me about the goals that you scored in that whole season.
I don't know what season that is, but I can remember vividly my debut for Aston Villa against Manchester City. Barely touched the ball. I think I maybe touched the ball 16, 17 times. Game was 1-0 though. Bent, goal scorer. 3 points. Yes. So, but I think if Lukaku is only getting a few of these touches, right, but he's scoring, I don't think the story's as big as we'll make it out to be. But the fact is he's not scoring and he's having 7 touches. One of them was from kickoff. That's where all the scrutiny comes from. But I like how you guys have dug up that story from somewhere.
Wow.
Always working, always researching. That's how we are around here. 10 goals in 25 games in all competitions that season, apparently. Well, look, are you basically saying it doesn't matter how many times you touch the ball, if you score a goal, then that's it?
I mean, that's his job. First and foremost, you take everything aside, his job is to, as a centre forward, is to score goals. And if he's doing that consistently, it doesn't really matter how many touches he's having. If the team's winning and doing well, and he's scoring goals, then that's all you can ask for. Can
you become an iconic player with, a bad stat behind you, unless, like, for example, you score in the Champions League final? That's it. You're folklore. You go down in history.
I think so, because you look at Chelsea fans, if you ask them about Kai Havertz, if he left tomorrow, what would he go down? A lot of them would say Chelsea legend, because he scored the winner in the Super Cup and now in the Champions League final, but his stats, I'm sure, are not great.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. Because Trevor, that's it. Like when the kids grow up when they're younger, they're not going to look at what else he did. He's the one that scored in the Champions League final.
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, I say that about goals. You know, you talk about goals and it came off his backside, or his touch was horrendous, and luckily the defender slipped over and he slotted it. It doesn't say that detail in the records. In black and white, it says Darren Bent scored the goal, and that's the important thing. And I think with Kai Havertz, it's exactly that. And I think same with Romelu. You know, if he scores goals, as long as he's working hard for the team and as long as he's got good attitude and he's a good influence in the changing room, I think everyone will let it go. If he's scoring goals, that's his main priority in his team.
What season was that? I was just asking, was that?
2011.
Oh yeah, I got injured. I missed 3 months. So I just thought I'd put that out there as well.
Well, it's just a ratio of the games that you were involved in.
talkSPORT Breakfast with Laura Woods. Monday to Wednesday mornings 6 till 10. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.